I have many labels: daughter, friend, wife, champion athlete, college graduate, entrepreneur, lawyer, owner of a multi-million-dollar business, and I have Tourette syndrome. Imagine when you're 9 years old and you're told you will not be able to do well in school and you probably won't go to college. You won't be able to play sports. You won't be able to drive a car. And you probably won't get married or have kids. That's what happened to me when I was sitting in a doctor's office with my parents, being diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. To a child, these weren't just predictions. This was a death sentence to living a full life. Would my life have no meaning if I couldn't achieve the most basic of milestones of a normal human being? After we left the doctor, my dad sat me down and he said, "You can do and be anything you want to be. You'll just have to work a little harder at it." My mother said, "The impossible just takes a little longer." But you've been there too, haven't you? Told that you couldn't do something because of your circumstance? Maybe you've been underestimated, mislabeled, overlooked. But what if those labels didn't define us? Today, I'm sharing my story for the first time to educate people on what it's like to live with Tourette syndrome. And I will share my strategy that will give you power in moments of weakness. I had a pretty normal childhood until the summer I turned 9. I developed what sounded like a cough or a hiccup. The sounds became more frequent, and soon, body twitches started to accompany them. At first, my parents thought I was messing around. And I wasn't doing this on purpose. I had zero control over my own brain and my body. Frustrated with me, my dad cut an onion one night and said I would have to eat it if I didn't stop making those sounds. But this punishment backfired because I love onion. That's when my parents realized this was serious. Our pediatrician sent us to a neurologist who suspected that I had Tourette. But in 1981, not much was known about it. So he sent us to a renowned geneticist at the City of Hope who studied Tourette syndrome. Not only did I have a Tourette diagnosis, but I also had comorbid disorders as well. OCD, ADHD, ODD, anxiety. If it had a D in its name, it was on my list. I had all the Ds. Once I was diagnosed, my 4th grade teacher made it clear she didn't want me in her class. My classmates were confused at this new Amy with these new habits. My teacher retaliated. Every time I made a vocal tic, she would take her chalk and mark a hash mark on the chalkboard. A public condemnation of something I couldn't control. By the end of the day, that entire chalkboard was filled with hash marks. It didn't just humiliate me. It taught my classmates that this type of abuse was acceptable. My 5th grade teacher wasn't much better. He sat me at the back of the class at my own table, far away from the other kids and the chalkboard. And one day, he came in with this giant cardboard box and he cut it open and he stretched it around my desk, creating my own solitary confinement. I couldn't see the teacher, the other kids, or the chalkboard. He couldn't see me if I raised my hand to ask a question. All I could do was sit behind that cardboard wall and read my book in shame and embarrassment, while tears rolled down my face. These were the adults that I was supposed to trust. They were the ones who were supposed to help me learn and grow. Instead, they created a hostile environment. And I felt completely alone. Nobody ever talks about the emotional impact of having a tic disorder or the impact on our mental health, especially in children. Yet, even in those moments of humiliation, something inside me refused to give up. It was then that I found the sport of baton twirling. It saved my life. I found an old baton in the street in front of the house one day, and my mom saw me playing with it, so she enrolled me in a Parks and Rec class. Twirling the baton made me forget that I had Tourette. The concentration needed to twirl in both hands, toss the baton up 20 feet in the air and catch it. It created enough of a distraction long enough for me to calm my tics. When I performed and I was twirling, I didn't have any tics at all. It wasn't just a distraction. It was freedom. For the first time, I could focus my mind and feel in control of my body. What started out as a hobby turned into my lifeline. With each spin of the baton, I rewrote the narrative that was given to me as a child. I wasn't limited. I was limitless. Baton twirling gave me a sense of purpose, and when I started to win championships, for the first time, I began to feel like I was worthy. When I was 18, my parents sent me to a coach in Toronto, a world-renowned coach, and she showed me just how resilient I could be. And she helped me become the UCLA Golden Girl feature baton twirler, and I traveled the world competing. When I retired from competition, I became a twirling judge, and a few years later, I had the idea to approach the two biggest twirling organizations in the world to form a union. And then later, I became a founding member of its first joint board. The impossible really does just take a little longer. And I'm glad that doctor was wrong about me being able to excel in sports. You heard about me living with Tourette in my younger years. And didn't stop me from finding love. When Brian and I were first married, we attended a ballet dress rehearsal. Now, at this point, in my late 30s, I know well what happens when I'm sitting in a quiet theater or a quiet room. Action movies are much more my speed because I can sit in the back row in the back of the theater and I can wait for a big explosion scene or a car chase or a car crash, and I can let my tics out and no one would be the wiser. But in this dress rehearsal, I thought I had my tics under control. But the reality is, with Tourette syndrome, control is just an illusion. My brain has its own rhythm, its own cadence, one that I can't always silence, no matter how hard I try. Brian was sitting on my left, and to my right was this woman. Brian didn't notice my tics, but this woman did. She heard my quiet tics, the ones where I buffer as much of the tics as possible by clenching my body and my hands as hard as I can, suppressing until it aches, and willing myself mentally to be still and quiet. It's exhausting. The lady gave me several dirty looks, so I lean over and I whisper, "Pardon me, I have Tourette syndrome." To which she replied, "You should not be allowed out in public." It was the first time, as an adult, that I ever heard those words uttered about me. And sitting next to my husband, I felt humiliated. And all the abuse that I had endured came rushing back in that single moment. You know, some days I have pretty good armor on, but that day, it was too much. There are other times where I'd be standing in a queue somewhere, minding my own business, and all of a sudden someone from behind me would shout in my ear. And I'd turn around and they'd smile and say, I was just trying to scare the hiccups out of you. Or someone would ask, is there a dog in here? I hear barking. And here's the thing that no one ever tells you about Tourette. Suppressing tics isn't just physical. It's also emotional. For every tic that I suppress, I'm holding back a piece of myself. I'm holding back a piece of myself trying to fit in a world that demands perfection. Suppression isn't a solution. It's a survival mechanism. And survival isn't living. Looking back, I realized that every step of my journey has taught me a lesson about resilience. These lessons have become my guiding principles, and I want to share them with you today. You're going to love this. I call it TICS. When you're faced with a challenge that you need to overcome, use this acronym to remind yourself that you can get through anything. T, trust yourself. Have faith in your abilities. And even when the world doubts you, just take one courageous step forward. I, the impossible is possible. It just might take a little longer. C is celebrating you. How many times have you rewarded yourself when you've achieved something incredibly difficult, or for you just being you? S is the strength already within you. And if you don't have enough strength, lean on someone that you trust to lift you up and keep you going. Using these guiding principles has helped me have the resilience to not only finish high school, but to graduate from college and law school, and to go on and marry a wonderful human being. It gave me the courage to start a promotional products company when I knew nothing about how to print a logo on a mug, and then having it become an award-winning multi-million-dollar business. When someone shares a part of their identity, like I am here with you today about Tourette, it's not something to pity or to fix. Instead of saying, I'm sorry you have Tourette, try saying, thank you for sharing your story. Or, how can I support you? For me, Tourette is a part of who I am, not something to apologize for. It has shaped my resilience and made me who I am today. And it has become my superpower. I am no longer a person you hide behind a cardboard box. I am more than what the world tells me that I am. I am the one that tells the world I am powerful, I am beautiful, I am smart. And I have Tourette syndrome. I'm actually a lot like that onion I had to eat when I was 9. Layers and layers of strong and spicy with the ability to make you cry. I am worthy simply because I am here, and so are you. Resilience is within all of us. You might not have Tourette syndrome, but my story is your story. Because we've all been told we're not enough in one way or another. And we've all had moments where we've had to suppress who we are in order to fit into a world that doesn't always make space for us. When you face challenges, and you will, remember the TICS framework. Trust yourself, even when the world doubts you. Believe that the impossible is possible. Celebrate every step forward, no matter how small. I'll leave you with this. Resilience isn't about achieving perfection. It's about showing up every day as your truest self and saying, I am worthy simply because I am here. Your story matters. You matter. And the world needs you exactly how you are. Ticks and all. Thank you.